did this where else? So we received a number of public comments on the draft comprehensive plan, both at the public hearing a couple weeks ago and in written comments that we received over email. We've gone through all of the comments and we've batched them together so that we can have a more comprehensive discussion. Just first off, any of the comments that were more editorial in nature, like changing a footer on a photo or some clarifications, those types of comments, we're just picking those up unless we have a question on them, in which case we'll go back to Allison and see. There was one, for example, about the speed on a roadway. Well, we double checked it and we found that we had it accurate for that section of the roadway. So things of that nature, we're double checking and changing where necessary. What we circulated this morning is an Excel spreadsheet that basically distills all the comments down to 25 major questions that we want to go over with the committee and see how you want to address them. We've sorted it by the chapter or topic. We've outlined the question, and then we have the notes which are suggesting how we address it in the comp plan. So I'll just start by sharing my screen. Okay. So the first comment, and we heard this at the public hearing, should the comp plan recommend a tree preservation ordinance? Throughout the process early on, we did hear recommendations that the comp plan recommend a tree preservation ordinance. I think at the public hearing, there was some misunderstanding about what the level of detail of that would be.
Yeah, I think they thought that the former South Nyack had a regulation in place, which was pretty, it was a tough tree law, So I think they thought that's what we were looking at, when I don't think this town board was ever looking at that. But I happen to personally think we should have something for tree preservation. I just know the town board attempted something many years ago and it never happened because there was just too many diverse views on the board at the time about, it's my tree, I can cut it down no matter what versus whatever. So I think that was the misunderstanding, was they thought we were trying to enact for all of Orangetown what South Nyack had, and that was just not the case.
Right. So I think that
if I can also add to that, if everyone remembers, South Nyack, the entire village is considered in a critical environmental area right now.
Right.
So in Orangetown, our critical environmental area does have restrictions on taking down trees. You have to get planning board approval. So I think, there's a little bit of an overlapping confusion there.
Right.
Part of South Nyack, if adopted, the new map will eliminate some of the areas out of the critical environmental area that are not steep slopes. So I think, a big concern from a planning perspective would be obviously to have some type of tree regulation, especially in the areas of critical environmental.
Yeah. And don't we also have something like for construction, right? They can't clear cut and things like that. Isn't there?
Right. Based on the size of the lot. If it's subdividable, then you can't clear cut. If you're commercial, you can't clear cut either. Does that become?
So I personally think there could be some, for single family residents, some kind of regulation. I don't think what South Nyack had is what we're looking. They basically said you couldn't cut down a tree if it was a certain diameter, basically unless you really, it was either you had to build there, it was dead, you really couldn't unless it was already, which.
You basically can't do anything in South Nyack without planning board approval as it sits right now.
Right.
So, hopefully the adoption of Chapter 18 or Article 18, if that happens in September, will ease some of those restrictions.
Right.
That was the goal.
So I
definitely think
your note actually covers it. It would not protect, and that obviously the details would be worked out when we got there. Yeah.
Right. So, and we can also put in a statement that it would be something to the effect that it would be scaled to be appropriate for the issues that are in front of Orangetown. There's a lot of variability there in how strict you want to be on your tree preservation ordinance. Okay. The next one is another hot topic. So right now there are some recommendations in the comp plan regarding restricting or updating the code as it relates to warehouse uses. We received a number of comments both for and against warehouse uses. The people that were against warehouse uses were generally concerned with the traffic impacts. The people that were for warehouse uses were more on the pro business, or they were representing applicants who have potential warehouse projects.
You know, again, I think the code needs to be updated because I think, again, that's why you do a comp plan, because 20 years ago or 20 whatever years ago, you know, the warehouses served different purposes. They were different sizes, they were different needs, the trucks were different sizes. So yes, I think our code needs to be updated. You know, maybe that restricts them, but I just, there were some people who wanted to ban them altogether, and that's just not realistic. You know, unfortunately, they're a necessity. So, yeah, I'm good
Right.
with restrict or update, and that would be addressed during the development of the local law.
Right. So the concept that would be put forth in the comp plan, that sort of is the balance of that, is you could have additional special permit restrictions on warehouse uses, and we could more clearly define the different types of warehouse uses. So, you know, self-storage facilities aren't in the same bucket as an Amazon distribution center. Should the comp plan recommend additional protections for watercourses, wetlands, and floodplains? So in general, the comp plan is supportive of protecting watercourses, wetlands, and floodplains, recommend some additional language or some additional protections to those resources. Most of the commenters were supportive of those additional restrictions, but some of them had some additional details that they wanted included in the comp plan. Our recommendation is to keep it at the level of detail that it is right now in the comp plan, and that those restrictions would be established during the development of the local law, very similar to how we would address the tree law.
Yeah, I mean, my response to that is I don't know what protection. I mean, I know what I don't know how restrictive our current, you know, protections are. So it's hard for me to comment. I mean, it's always sounds better to say, sure, make it more restrictive. But if we're already really restricted, maybe you have an idea how restricted we are, or Jane, or I mean, are we like, you know, if you were to put it on a scale among other municipalities, are we like a, you know, a 1 we're real easy, 10 we're real hard, but 5 we're in the middle?
I think for wetlands, there are other towns that are more restrictive, because other towns have their own wetland protection ordinances that can go above and beyond the state minimum.
Right, we stay with the state.
We're with the statement, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so one of the things that happens when you rely on the state for the wetland ordinance is that you miss out on some smaller wetlands that wouldn't be regulated, which have, you know, like vernal pools and things of that nature.
Okay. So again, certainly something we can look at.
The comp plan provides some general recommendations regarding the need for the diversity of housing types and some potential locations. There's a proposed land use map that highlights some areas. We received comments both for and against these recommendations. Those in favor supported more housing for young professionals and seniors looking to stay in the community. Those against favored the status quo and the preservation of the existing. They were concerned about how this would affect existing single-family neighborhoods and the
I
hamlet.
know, I'm so over it. I want to scream. My head wants to pop off of my shoulders when I talk about this, because it's not just, it's members of my board too, but I'm leaving it in. I think we need it. I think, you know, it's like we had a conversation about it, and this is not even like mixed use is not even new. It's done all over the country. It's everywhere. Like we just had it, somebody reached out to us about a particular mixed use possibility. They showed us examples in Bedford and Chappaqua. They were beautiful. I'm like, so I don't get it. I don't get the craziness around this. We just want our single family homes. No one's putting it in their single family home neighborhood. So the people want this, they're gonna have to battle past me for the status quo.
The comp plan recommends additional controls for nuisance issues like noise, light, construction. We did receive a couple additional suggestions. One was to regulate clotheslines and another was to regulate air quality. There was a concept of having like a child protection zone. The concept about the child protection zone came up in the context of the transportation chapter, and it wasn't something that we're familiar with any precedent for. So I'm not sure that's something we want to
Well,
add.
we do have, we have the no smoking within by a school. We have, kind of, are they trying to say like you create a whole zone where,
It was in relation to the trucks and how the trucks were traveling through the town, and but while we can recommend truck routes, we can't necessarily prohibit trucks from accessing certain portions of the town because they still need to be able to make deliveries to people's homes and businesses.
Because then with trucks, it's a whole, the trucks is a whole to do right now. The county did a study. A lot of them are state, we have to deal with the DOT. We have our traffic advisory boards doing what they can, but it's, again, if we want to put something here that just as long as it's recognized that we have limitations, we can't tell the state, we can't, they don't care what we say. They don't care that we think 340 is a scenic, whatever. We had a meeting with the DOT about it already, and they're just not real receptive to working with us. But anyway, can I just go on the nuisance issues? I don't know, and it probably should have been in here somewhere. If there's anything in there that we could, one of the things we've started to encounter is people renting out their pools. Have you heard about this craziness with their renting out their
I have heard about that, yeah.
So, arguably it's a commercial use and it's not allowed in a residential neighborhood, but I just think maybe something that, we're gonna have to look at that. The food trucks, which is not really necessarily a nuisance, but they're becoming a thing that everyone wants to do a food truck, and
Right, and the Airbnb goes
and
along.
the short-term
Yep.
rentals. Those are the three things I was just gonna say. And we
Okay.
have, the town attorney's office has already started, like I have a food truck regulation that I have to move on or whatever, but so I just think it should be, because these are kind of quality of life issues that,
Yeah. Okay, we can add some.
yeah, nothing,
on each of
just, again, they're just kind of quality of life nuisance things, but I find it absolutely amazing that somebody would think it's okay to rent out their pool on for parties and stuff. Like, so it's, I said the liability of that is insane. Like, if someone drowns in that pool, and so anyway, we are stopping it based upon the fact that it's a commercial use and a residential, but it just needs to be.
Okay.
One of Rick's neighbors is doing it. Has it stopped, Rick? I know we went out and.
I think it stopped right when it became an issue. I haven't done this for a few weeks.
Well, they went out, they served them a notice or whatever, and I guess the summer's ending, so whatever. Okay. Till next summer.
The comp plan recommends some additional design guidelines for the hamlets, and that include signage. But we did receive a general comment about updating the
Yeah,
sign
we
code.
just redid it. We just did a
You just redid it, okay.
Out of our sign code last year.
Okay, so we won't make any
That's out.
changes.
See, people think we can stop the messaging like that, and we can't. It's, that violates the Constitution. So they get upset. They see a sign and they want us to be able to stop it. We can't put it in our law because that's not legal. So I
Yeah,
think
you
that's
have to
the
be
color.
content neutral.
Yes, yeah.
The comp plan recommends additional regulations such as special permits for certain types of uses, for example, smoke shops. There were a couple comments suggesting some additional uses such as undertakers and indoor farming. Are either of those?
I have no idea what our code currently says about undertakes. That mean like funeral parlors?
Yeah, like a funeral parlor.
Business
be.
use, yeah, it's permitted in certain area. I think it's a CS, but I can look, but the indoor farming is definitely something we.
Yeah, because
That's
need to look
definitely
at.
growing.
Yes.
Yeah, we actually talked to
Pun not
somebody, they
intended.
call it
We've had inquiries.
Yeah,
vertical farming, right? They call it. Yeah, the undertakers, I don't even know why that would bother you, but
and indoor farming is also becoming an issue with the cannabis industry. Because even if you opted out,
We know.
it still allows, okay.
We have one looking to come.
So the historic section, the comp plan recommends maintaining the existing historic resource protections, and some commenters suggested adding additional protections and studies. One of the things we noticed was that the suggestions were very specific to certain areas of the town. Some of them recommended additional archaeological studies. I don't think that those are appropriate for the comp plan. I don't think we
No.
need that level of detail.
No.
So I think we could simply acknowledge that there's the potential for archaeological resources in those areas and advise that should any development or changes occur in the future, that development in that area should be coordinated with SHPO and
Well, we
appropriate
usually do
studies should
have
be
to go
taken
if
at the
they-
time. Yeah,
right?
it's sort of just stating what's already required by
Yeah,
state
yeah.
law, or we
Yeah,
could
I mean,
just
the
stay
only thing
silent on it.
I would maybe add, and this has always been one of my kind of pet peeves with our historical thing is, it's more, to me, it's more to specific properties. You know, sometimes we do these areas and the houses are not that old, where you might have a really, historic house that's not in a historic district, but I don't, again, I don't know how you deal with that unless you just have right, you can have a property designated or something, We've never done it, but yeah, no, I agree with you on that.
Teresa, back to the undertakers, they are a special permit of the zoning board in CO and CS districts.
Okay, so it's already in
It's
there.
already a special permit.
We have way more problems to worry about besides undertakers.
Okay. But we'll add indoor farming. Okay. We received a comment that Western Highway and Blauvelt should be considered a historic route.
I'm even afraid to ask who put that comment in, but what is a historic, what does making a road a historic route do?
That may be,
Or a historic district. Yeah, they were concerned about the number of historic homes on that street.
right, and the convent on Western Highway.
Is that even Blauvelt though? That's in Orangeburg, isn't it?
Well, that would start it, like you have a lot of historic houses once you start going north from that point.
But what does, again, so let's say we're gonna do this, what does, as a practical matter, what does that do?
So it would be added to your historic preservation. You have a code already, a town-specific code on historic preservation. I'd have to take a closer look at where it would best fit within that code. Some towns will regulate historic routes by saying, if you're doing anything within, 50 to 100 feet of the right of way, you need to get a permit from your historic sites commission or your historic preservation board. You need to preserve buffers, stone walls, things of historic nature.
Cool.
It's an extra level of review for anyone who has a property along that.
Right, so we have historic districts. There's two specific areas of the town that are actually mapped.
Right, so that's why I think we would have to take another step.
Right.
Because we don't have anything right now that says that if you're on a historic road, you have to do X, Y, or Z. So designating it's not gonna do anything is what I think, unless.
Are there I haven't taken a close look at that street to see if it's
I'm missing it. I don't see it.
Yeah,
okay.
I don't think we have any actual historically designated streets.
Right.
Again, it's just the two districts, so
Okay.
that would mean creating a new section of the code.
Yeah, and I again, I have no offense to the Western Highway section. There's a couple of older properties, but I don't see it as like a Japan.
Okay, so you don't think that it would be a district? It's not contiguous enough. Okay.
I mean, certainly could look at it, but I wouldn't put it in.
Okay.
Does anybody disagree with me? I'm not a one person committee here, I just,
There was a general recommendation to establish a program to enhance the display of monuments and markers to further beautify the parks. I don't have any objections to adding this, but I just wanted to check with the board.
No, I'm fine with it.
There was a request for additional detail on the history of certain parts and aspects of the town. Our position is that the level of detail provided is typical of a comp plan. It's intended to inform how the town's history has informed the overall development pattern of the town. It's while there's additional information available that we could insert, I'm not sure that
No,
it
I actually thought
needs
you
to be
guys,
here.
I thought you guys did a lot. I thought you did enough, put it that way. I thought it was
Okay.
nice for background, whatever, didn't go overboard. I mean, look, you want to know the history of the town, you go, there's books.
Transportation. So we received a number of comments on the town's bus service. The comp plan describes the existing conditions. Some of the commenters recommended additional service. Others noted that service was unreliable, and there were some recommendations against additional service. Yeah, so nobody was on the same page on that one. We suggest edits to add a statement that additional stops and service routes should be studied and collaborated on with transit providers, and to also add a note on transit reliability and a need for improving reliability. But ultimately, it's not
Especially
you
with
know, really
congestion
within the.
pricing coming. Yeah, I mean, it's fine. It's something we all know is an issue here, but again, it's somewhat out of our control of the
Right.
task.
The comp plan recommends bike lanes and interconnecting existing trail systems. We received comments both for and against bike lanes. The comments against bike lanes had concerns about insufficient roadway space. So we suggest keeping the current CPU language on bike lanes, but supplementing the language to elaborate on context sensitive. So acknowledging that where there's insufficient roadway width, then it may not be appropriate for a bike lane.
That's good.
Similarly, the comp plan recommends pedestrian improvements and implementing the town's complete streets policies, such as sidewalks, crosswalks. We received comments both for and against pedestrian improvements and complete streets. Comments against pedestrian improvements had concerns about insufficient space or insufficient demand. So similarly, we suggest keeping the current language on pedestrian improvements and adding additional text to elaborate on context sensitive.
This is what you hear. These comments here are that we don't want any change. That's what we have here. They don't want any change. It's 2022. It's time for change. The only other thing I like about the language you're proposing, but was there something about the impervious? Was that the impervious surfaces one? Not worried about with the sidewalks. Oh, that's on Mike Mandel's one. I'm sorry, I jumped to the other sheet.
Okay.
Talks about the impervious surfaces, something like that. With the sidewalks, somehow, if you could just get in there, because one of the things that these people are seeing are dollar signs, and we do know that sidewalks are expensive.
Right.
So just some kind of acknowledgement that when funding is available, something, I don't know, just that, like, this does not mean we're going out tomorrow and bonding millions of dollars to do sidewalks. Sidewalks are good. They're safe. They help. We all want sidewalks. So, again, to the extent, I guess you can make them impervious or whatever the opposite word is, whatever, impermeable, whatever word you have here. And, when funding's available, I don't know, something
Okay.
like that, just acknowledge it. Some people see this, that we're going to doing all these things immediately and they just see dollar signs. So
I
I'd love
understand.
to, but
The comp plan recommends additional parking at commuter hubs. And again, we've received comments both for and against this recommendation.
oh, I'm sure you did.
So
Again, if you could put something that just says, maybe not all commuter hubs when it's needed, because some get more activity than others, again.
maybe something along the lines of studying the demand or.
Yes.
Okay.
Again, so when we just approved a commuter parking area, you would not believe the hullabaloo over it.
We received a request that the comp plan add a recommendation to establish truck-free zones and additional measures to restrict truck traffic throughout the town. And as I mentioned earlier, we can recommend establishing some truck routes, and that's currently in the CPU, but we can't make a truck-free zone because residential and commercial deliveries are still needed. So I
Yeah.
think the level of detail we have in there is about as far as we can go
Yeah,
on that
I get
topic.
it. Look, I get it. Everyone's crazy about the trucks, but there's limitations, but we'll do what we can, but people that still need to get their Amazon delivered.
For economic development, the comp plan recommends placemaking strategies to support local businesses and community engagement. Overall, we've received a lot of positive feedback on that recommendation, but we did receive one comment in opposition. So I just wanted,
I think I questioned it. I just don't know what that means.
Okay.
What does placemaking strategies mean? I guess I don't know exactly what that means.
okay, so that's like place specific events to make your community have a unique character. So it could be having some
Oh, like a farmer's market and things
like
like
a
that?
yeah, it could be a farmer's market, it
Oh,
could
okay.
be additional street safe guidelines, it could
Yeah.
be, you know, uniform plantings along
Yeah.
the street, it could be
Okay.
flags. I know a lot of your hamlets have those really great historical banners.
Yep.
So things like that.
Okay, then I'm fine with it. I don't know why anybody would be against it, but you know,
Comp plan recommends seeking grants to support economic development, and we received one comment in opposition.
Is the one common, is it all the same person?
I mean, not throughout this table, but I think those two were from the same person.
Yeah.
The concern on that one was that grants come with strings.
Oh, good Lord. Okay. Some do, some don't. It depends on the type of grant. Depends what you're looking at it for. But yes, overall, I think seeking grants to support economic development in and of itself is a good idea.
And then in terms of general, we received one comment about the organization that suggested moving the history and economic sections up front and having the land use section further into the document. I think there's some merit there, but I just wanted, and we don't have any objections to changing that, but I wanted to run that by the board.
I'm fine with that. Really giving it much thought, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, the way we set it up,
Because you have your introduction, which you're gonna leave, and then
yeah,
and then you would put okay, moving.
I
history.
have to think about it a little bit more, but I
Okay.
mean, I get the idea that you'd want to have your history and some of the demographics up front.
Yeah.
But we do frame so much of the discussion about the town and the context in the land use chapter that it
Yeah.
does inform the later chapters as well. So I see benefits to both.
Okay, well, I don't have any strong opinion about the organization.
Ashley, would it be possible to move the page numbers to like the upper right or lower
Yes.
right? Because once you staple it together, you can't see them.
I noticed that when we printed it too. So we'll change that.
Okay, I have one more thing that I probably should have said when we were talking about the land use. And again, something in our town code, I noticed that in our strip malls, they don't have garbage bins or recyclable bins. So like, I guess our planning board could require it, but I don't know if they didn't, but like, you know, over where Luigi O'Grady's is, there's no garbage bin outside, no recycle bin. So you're coming out of a deli, whatever, you know, so something that would make it a requirement, put it that way.
Okay.
Certain, you know, again, to be fleshed out when we do the code, whether it's a certain size, whether there's certain businesses there. I'm not saying everybody, but you know.
Okay. Any other questions on any of these before I turn it over to Yvonne?
Nope.
Okay, so I will share my screen. Can we all see the spreadsheet?
Oh, yeah,
Great. Okay.
we have one page of them.
Mhm. Okay. So we've gone over all the public hearing feedback pertinent to chapter 6 and 7, which adds up to 30 comments in total, with 18 comments for chapter 6 parks and 12 comments for chapter 7 sustainability. And some major topics in parks that we got was a lot of objections against the Gesner and Tout Park boat launches, like maybe 7 comments on that.
Yeah.
Support for Olson Center acquisition, a lot of support for the OPDAC recommendations, and some comments on invasive plant species management. And then the major topics in sustainability would be flooding and water management, as well as fossil fuels and electricity supply. And so we've organized these comments here and put them by category, and it would be great if we could get the town's feedback on these comments. So I will go over these with an overview. And the orange you see here is sort of the overarching category of comment, or short type of summary for each of the comments. So in terms of the OPDAC recommendations, Eric, I think you've provided comments for these, right? And is that something representative of the response to the OPDAC recommendations?
So I responded to some of the OPDAC recommendations. I kind of put my own, I just gave my own input because I don't know that I agreed with everything that they put forth.
Mhm.
They met separately from me. That was their request. They
Okay.
wanted to do that without me, which was fine. They're a group of residents, they're taxpayers. They can certainly have their own opinion. But I provided a separate set of comments, just kind of commenting on their stuff.
Okay. Okay.
I confess I didn't read it.
Mhm.
I will read it. So I can't say whether I agree with Eric said.
Okay, so what we'll do is sort of align the response maybe to Eric, your feedback. And okay, so moving on to this comment.
I don't know if that's in the OPDAC or not. I will tell you the Gesner Street. I totally agree with the residents down there. There's no way there should be a boat launch it's like a residential street. You can't even turn around at the bottom. I just drove down there over the weekend. So I Gesner Street, I totally think that should not be. That should just be something people walk to, whatever.
Okay.
Tout is interesting. I wouldn't commit either way to that because I have to get in it. It's right now we know it can't be because there's an old pump station or something that is a hazard. So maybe down the road, but Gesner, I already told the residents like Gesner, I agree with them 100% on that.
Okay. I think with that, Teresa, you just addressed maybe a third of the comments.
Okay, good.
Yeah. All right. So this is a more place-specific recommendation on multi-use paths. And in terms of these treatments of, for instance, repaving sections of Route 340, does this make sense to the town?
The part about engaging with New York State to have on Route 340 traffic calming and bicycles. Yeah, we just recently did something we recommended they reduce the speed limit. The problem is it's New York State. Like I'd love to see some of this stuff done. I'm fine with saying we'll attempt to engage with New York State. We have not had much success when we try to engage with DOT on doing things, but.
It's also just funny to talking about bikes on 340. The rail trail runs side 340.
I wouldn't be encouraging bikes to go on 340.
Okay.
I mean, you can literally get to the same place without going on 340 just by going on the rail trail.
On the rail trail. I mean, that's the funny thing about it. We really do have a nice rail trail system, like
Yeah.
very nice. You know, I
Definitely.
don't know if people don't realize it or whatever, but would we like more? Sure, but what we have a nice rail trail.
All right, so we'll sort that accordingly. And the next comment, and a couple of comments on invasive species and tree preservation removal, which overlaps with what Ashley said earlier.
Yep.
About the preservation. All right. So I think these are specifically South Nyack residents who are
Yes.
speaking up about.
Yeah,
tree
that was the conflict where there's some, you know, because they're not allowed to cut down trees. Apparently there's invasive trees, and so
Right.
Yeah.
Then moving here. Okay, that's editorial. And then there are several comments on Olson Center
Yeah.
acquisition.
mhm. We're engaged with the property owner, so it's something we support.
So there's this more specific comment on Olson Center that emphasizes the archaeological significance and a survey. Is that something that the town would support?
We're actually bringing in Riverkeeper and the Land for Public Trust or whatever are going to work with us on it. If anyone's going to know what they got to do with this stuff, they would. Yeah,
I don't think that level of detail needs
Yeah, I
to
don't
be in the
either.
comp plan.
again, yeah, I
Okay.
agree. It's not good enough that we're going to try and acquire it. We have to now, you know.
Mm. Okay, so more on Olson Center acquisition. Against Gesner boat launch, we've established that. Okay, invasive species. So as you just said, Teresa, the tout boat launch would be an interesting future opportunity that we would.
Yeah. I mean, it's you know, whether it's a boat launch or whether it's an open park or whatever, but at the moment there's an old pump station it's kind of shut off from the public, but
Mhm,
that will be addressed at some point and then we'll revisit it. But
mhm.
I didn't even know that park was there until recently. Quote unquote park.
Mm. So I believe it was included in the on a Hudson Greenway
Yeah.
map.
Yeah, so it was the village of South Nyack. It was clearly in the village of South Nyack, and they talked about it when they were dissolving, and they just kept saying we're not opening up to the public. And I didn't realize it was on the Hudson River until recently when we started talking about a boat launch. So yeah, I mean, there's certainly nothing happened imminently, but it's something that the town is going to revisit once our dilapidated pump station is gone.
Right, okay, great. I think that's it for parks. And on to sustainability. Let's see here. So an extensive comment, again, a place-based comment on flooding. Also requesting collaboration with DOT, which you mentioned was
Right,
sometimes
Never
challenging.
easy, right?
Mhm, mhm.
I mean, look, flooding is a problem
Mhm.
in certain parts of the town, and
Mhm.
again, we're cognizant of it. And like last night, we just took action to approve a project to help with the flooding. So I don't know what Mr. Castagna is saying here, reduce channels of water reaching Elm Falls. Okay, I mean, we can certainly ask New York State to do these things, but
Okay,
I wouldn't hold my breath if I was.
okay. Right. plans for droughts and protecting the water supply. And there has been challenges surrounding droughts in the last few years in terms of water management.
Yeah.
Yes. Flooding. Okay. This is more of a editorial comment. And then, oh, actually, the sidewalk permeability is something that was discussed earlier.
Yep.
With Ashley. So, okay,
Yeah, I got one page, but it seems like even it's not the complete thing, so I don't know what I got.
Yeah, we only received the one page. It's only like 3
Yeah.
items.
Yeah, I was like, wow, that's not too bad.
After the call, Yvonne, can you forward this full spreadsheet to Allison?
yes, okay, we will do that. Editorial, that's editorial. Mhm. So CCA renewable electricity option had a bit of controversy with one comment against
Whatever.
it and one comment.
Please, I got a bunch of just, so just, again, for purposes of the CCA is an ongoing thing, like to put,
Yeah.
I don't even know how you put it in here. So just for purposes of what we're doing now,
Yeah.
the CCA is a NYSERDA program that if you don't meet, we just opened the bids last week, and if you don't meet a certain benchmark, we can't do it. And that's what just happened. So none of us, the whole CCA program, is going to be contracting because the benchmark, we couldn't meet the benchmark. So
I see.
it's an ongoing thing. It depends on what the pricing is. Depends on, I don't know that you should get tied up in
Okay.
in this. I mean, it's recognized as a program, the town's participating, but the town board's gonna have to make a decision every time it comes up. So we had way more in favor of doing the renewable than the one against it, but anyway, we got a bunch of emails.
Okay. So in the comprehensive plan state that this is something that the town is engaged in as an ongoing process.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, this is another CCA comment, but food scraps program, which is something that we could add to recommendations in chapter 7.
Yeah, look, it's, so the food scrap program that we're running is done through the Rockland County Solid Waste Authority, that's now called Rockland Green. So that is our ultimate goal. They are just now expanding it, looking to expand it into the village, having their own pickup place, location, because right now they have to come to the town highway department. I know Clarkstown is starting the process. Yeah, I mean, you could say, but it's obviously, again, something that Rockland, we have to do through the Rockland County Solid Waste Authority. But that is our goal, but
Okay.
really, in the short term, our goal should be get more people to do what we have.
I see. Okay, so we'll incorporate that. Okay. Another flooding comment specifically pertaining to Sparkle River area.
We know it's a problem. On
Right.
340, they get flooded.
And we do have comments addressing this particular area in chapter 7. Okay, last 2 comments. This one is about having stricter emissions regulations and supporting pollinators. Now in terms of emissions regulations and fossil fuels, is a stricter stance something that is tenable in terms of
At
policy?
the town level, I mean, other than, she gives a couple of examples there,
Mhm.
I guess, no, this, I'll tell you right now, this town board is not gonna restrict the use of gas powered blowers.
Okay,
I personally don't have a problem with it, but I don't think I would get this town board to agree.
okay. I think the native planting and pollinator support is something that we can add to one of the existing recommendations on landscaping. So that can be addressed. And then there's a final comment, concerned
It's too
about
much.
the,
Yeah, that's Barbadella, we got it.
okay, the concerns about the expenses surrounding sustainable practices.
I mean, I guess if there's a comment that can certainly be added, all of these things are, something we strive for, but there's a cost to them, so if there's just an overriding comment that, have the cost factor, that's fine.
Mhm, mhm. Okay. So noting the cost factor. I think that, yes, that's all the comments on chapter 6 and 7. Do you have any other comments and concerns on these?
No, I mean, a lot of these people, I've read the comments, I've read Jim Castagna's comments, I read Deborah Francois's comments. I
Mhm.
haven't seen Mike Mandel's, but. I think we're getting there.
All right, thank you.
And then another thing I wanted to discuss today is I understand that you're going after a grant application, and that does require some specific language in the comp plan on sustainability. There is quite a bit of language on the environment and the economy within the comp plan. The third E is equity, and that was not specifically called out as equity within the comp plan update, but we do feel that it is addressed within the comp plan. So what we're suggesting to add is at the end of this paragraph here in chapter 1, a statement that says, a central aspect of the vision is to ensure that the goals below address the community's definition of sustainability, as well as the 3 E's of sustainability: environment, economy, and equity. The environment and economy components are addressed in specific chapters, while the equity component, which aims to ensure an even distribution of the burdens and benefits of policy actions across the community, is woven throughout.
Works for me. I don't,
So we-
I just know in the grant application, they talk specifically about South Nyack with the equity. So I don't know if you have to, I think it has to be a little bit more.
what do
Okay.
you mean about South
Con-
Nyack with the equity?
That's what it was in the grant. I could show you after. They talked about getting all the sustainability, including equity. I guess the people in disadvantaged communities having access to environmental things that we would have, but I guess they all would. So that's why you were saying it's woven throughout, but I think they might want something a little bit more specific.
It's such, I'm sorry, I know this is being taped, but it's such bullshit. I'm sorry, like we're, I don't even know what it means. So I'm like,
I
it's
was gonna
hard
say,
to,
is South Nyack considered disadvantaged
that's
community?
what I'm saying. I'm like, the disadvantaged people don't want Town Park, they don't want Gesner Park, they don't want anybody doing anything. They're like the least disadvantaged as far as I'm concerned, but
Allison, would you be able to forward me the grant application so I can see a
yeah,
little bit
I
more
don't,
context?
Yeah.
See what we can come up with. Because I do feel that sustainability is very solidly addressed within the draft plan as it stands today. So I think if it's just adding a little bit more language here or there, we can accommodate that. Okay, so the next action item in this is to finalize the draft. So we'll take the comments back today. We'll make these edits. I think we can turn this around fairly quickly. Next week's there's a holiday, and so we probably won't be till maybe like 2.5 weeks to turn this around. And then we would have the CPC do a formal referral to the town board. We could also refer it to the county planning department at the same time. We can refer it to the planning board. And once the town board acknowledges receipt, they can set a public hearing.
Now, when we send it to the I presume Rockland County Planning and Orangetown Planning Board, do we normally give them a certain amount of time to comment before we?
Yeah,
I know when we do
so
the referrals, it's, yeah,
the county gets 30 days and then they need to get it in advance of the public hearing.
okay.
Yeah, we try to send stuff out like around 40 days before. Just to, but
Yeah, that's
30 days is minimum.
what I'm suggesting. We send it at the same time we send it to the town board. We can say at that point that it's coming from the town board as the referral. But that gives them a little bit more time built in advance of the public hearing.
Yeah.
So I think that would put the public hearing on the town board side towards the end of September or early October. I don't know. I know we start getting into the Jewish holidays and we probably want to avoid those.
I'm away the last week of September, so it's gonna have to be October.
Okay.
Do we set the date now? Do we let the town board set a date, or?
Well, the town board would set the date, but I think if we could get a date in mind so we can make
Okay.
sure that we're hitting our targets working back from that date.
Okay.
At the end of September, I don't think you'd hit the,
Yeah,
the
we're too close.
right. Maybe the second meeting in October.
The 11th.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have one on the 4th, so it'll be 11th, October 11th.
Okay.
Now, okay, that's fine.
Well,
Does-
Ashley, would you be able to send it out then the Labor Day week?
Is that, yeah, that may be cut if we're doing 30 days, right?
A minimum of 30. It has to
Min-
get to them 30 days before.
Yeah, so they would have to get it. Yeah, the week of Labor Day.
And we could push it back to the 25th, then pushing it. Town board meeting.
We have 3 public hearings on October 11th for the budget.
Oh, okay. So probably not the best night to do it anyway.
Yeah,
Why don't we target the 25th then? That gives us a little bit more time. Then we can finalize the plan. And the CPC, we should have one more brief meeting so you can make your formal motion to send it along. And that can be on Zoom.
so, okay, so when do you think you're gonna, I'm sorry, you're gonna have the draft done, you said?
We'll shoot to get the draft done the week of Labor Day.
So that's the.
So yeah, the week of the 5th.
So do we set something up for that week or the following week?
Let's set something up for like the 12th, 13th, 14th.
Okay. Either. Or the 12th or 13th is better, but. I could do actually, they're all fine as long as we do them in the morning. 13th, I'm completely open. 12th, I'm completely open. 14th would have to be in the morning or late afternoon.
So we have on Tuesdays, we have our town fall construction meetings. So what do you think? It's about 10:30? If we did the 13th
I'm completely open.
and the 14th, I have PRC in the morning, so I wouldn't be available till after
Okay, so
11.
let's shoot for the 12th. Let's shoot for the 13th, I guess.
Can you do 9 on the 13th?
I can. Long as someone.
It's gonna be tight. We have Eric, Eamon, and I are in our town hall construction meetings that
I
start at 8.
see. Um,
Maybe 9:30?
I can do 9:30.
Because that one won't be that long, right? We're
It's just gonna be a short, quickly go over
Right. If there's any
the
other-
revised draft and making the formal recommendations.
Okay.
That works for us too.
Okay. So CPC 10:13, we're targeting town board, I'm sorry, 9:13 for CPC. At 9:30, we're targeting the public hearing with the town board on
10:30.
10:25, and we'll get you the draft the week of the 5th.
Okay. So light at the end of the tunnel.
Okay, all right. Sounds good.
Hey, very good.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank
Enjoy
you.
the rest
Everyone
of the
have a good
week.
day.
Bye.